one who understands the complexities of this ambitious cinematic masterpiece?
How do you sound? You sound better than me?
Okay. If I'm just talking at this level, which is normal for me.
That's pretty normal.
Is this normal?
For me, this is normal. Like, I might talk like, oh yeah, like this and that and blah, blah, blah. So,
I think we should keep it real low energy.
okay, let's do that.
No, it can't be! No! Hi.
Hey, I'm Maxwell Adams.
Oh, and that's my cue to say I'm Brett Varon.
And Brett, what did you do on the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy?
Now that I think about it, I was, I did storyboard writing and that's it. Storyboard. Can we start over?
Yeah, sure, why not?
I was a storyboard artist on Billy and Mandy.
Yeah, and you were there pretty much from the start, I would say. Maybe you came in about 6 months in?
Yeah, you did the first, half season when it was Evil Con Carne and Billy and Mandy.
Mm-hmm. Grim and Evil.
Grim and Evil, and I was hired for just the Billy and Mandy section, right?
People traded off, but I don't think you ended up doing any Evil Con Carnes really until the last batch we did.
Yep, because you stopped doing them for a while, right?
We stopped doing them altogether, but before we did that, they wanted me to finish out a full season. So
Yeah.
after that first year, they were like, it was stressing out the crew because we had two kind of different styles going on. And Cartoon Network was like, yeah, we're moving to 11-minute episodes instead of 7. So they put it on me to choose which series lived and which one died. And I was like, well, of course I'm going to pick Billy and Mandy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And after that, they were like, okay, but please do, 5 more half hours of Evil to close out the 13.
Oh, actually, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
That's how that went. Okay. I mean, of course, I would have picked Billy. It's a no-brainer to pick Billy and Mandy, but the other one was really good too. Evil Con Carne was a great show.
Yeah, it was fun.
And it was really fun. And I was sad I didn't get to do any.
Well, until you did.
Until I did, yeah, that's true. And I don't know. I think I like 2 of the. I think I did 3 or 2. I think I did 3.
Maybe I only remember the 2. You did.
Okay, maybe it was 2.
The HCC BDD and the one where Estroy has his nephew.
That's right. God. I don't have a lot of memories of doing those particular boards, except that I designed the characters and there was a big pillow fight. That's the one that stands out. And a dolphin, right?
Oh yeah. I forgot about that. They were like trained killer dolphins.
Yes. And there was some kind of glass tube that they were in, and I haven't seen it. Honestly, I haven't seen it since because it's like,
that's a tough one to find.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah,
So,
13 half hours doesn't buy you much as far as syndication goes.
Yeah. And I remember loving, though, just on the note of when there was Evil Con Carne on the map, doing the 7-minute segments. More so than 11. I don't know how people feel about that, but when you do a 7-minute, at least for writing and boarding it, when you do a 7-minute version, you make it all about making the story funny and just funny character stuff that always moved the story at the leanest pace that you can imagine.
I always said 7 minutes was sort of like the bare minimum you can tell a story in. Like you can barely do a story in 7 minutes. 11 somehow gives you just a lot more.
It gives you breathing room.
Yeah, breathing room. And
I mean, I did enjoy the 11s. Of course, we did so many of them, but I don't know. There's something. There's a certain amount of less pressure to do a 7 because it's harder because you have to do the story real lean and move it, but you don't do a lot of asides and things. Just make the story beat funny. So in a way, you're writing this lean, funny, character-based story, for each episode, and the storyboards weren't as daunting drawing-wise because we work on paper, of course, right? So the pile of, remember, there were like 80 to 100 pages of 3 panels.
7 minute, like old school 7 minute.
Old school 7 minute.
And then I feel like by the time we got to 11s, like more was expected out of the boards, so that padded out the page number even more, and suddenly you were, carrying around like 30 pages of storyboard everywhere you went.
Yeah, 300 you mean, right?
Well, 30 pounds.
Oh, 30 pounds, yeah.
If I said pages, I meant pounds.
Yeah, definitely pounds. They went from 3 panels to, on smaller square, smaller frames to 2-panel, larger frames,
and
11
widescreen,
minutes.
which added even more screen space to draw.
That's right. It was harder the post-its didn't fit as well. So I had to like trim each post-it because post-its were the best. They were just such a great way to write, to do a story, because it doesn't work. You just tear it off, recycle it, and which I, ashamedly didn't recycle as much as I could at the time.
I mean, we all had the recycle bins, so I think most of the stuff ended up in them anyway.
It did, right? That's true. But yeah, the piles ended up 300 pages, 280.
Yeah, 300 easy, I think.
Easy.
The latter seasons.
So then that's more daunting when you start at the beginning. You read your outline or you write an outline, whatever. You think this is going to be 300 pages. That's going to be a pile like this. And that's, it just feels daunting. So I remember.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Especially, you get done with your first week and you're like, I've got 16 pages. And then you're like, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like you're dropping the bucket.
280 more to go.
Yeah. But then, with the 7 minutes, even if it's 3 panels per page, 80 to 100, whatever, 10 pages, it just feels like, oh yeah, I could do this. And it's still really hard because you've got to, just be lean with with the storytelling, and it kind of challenged me to be funny with not only how the characters responded to the story, but just keep it, I think, like I've already said, moving forward. So I guess there's advantages to both, and maybe the way people watch entertainment today, the leaner version might be, people like shorter formats maybe. So, but I love 11s in a lot of the ones I did too. So.
Well, but before we go too much further, I would say you're mostly known for some of the most famous or infamous Billy and Mandy episodes.
I don't know, really.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't know that.
So we gotta ask the important questions. Like,
okay.
Uncle Chokey's chicken.
Oh.
What's up with that? I get that question a lot. Is like, how did you guys get away with that? And there is a story behind that.
There is a story behind that. When I would, with my wife, I would go. I grew up in Georgia, so she had an Uncle Chokey. And of course, I couldn't help but laugh when I heard Uncle Chokey. And you got to be kidding me.
Wasn't he a chicken?
And he was a chicken farmer. So I said, this made itself, So I just took that and said, yes, Uncle Chokey's chicken farm. And then I didn't feel, bad about, using it because it's based on an actual human being.
Well, and that's how it ended up happening was I sent it to Cartoon Network and I was like, they're going to make us change it. And they were like, well, why are you doing this? And I told them, that this is a real person that Brett knows. And they were like, oh, okay. And sometimes I'm still shocked at that. Like, the weird thing is, like, every now and then you explain something to standards and, try to rationalize what you're doing. And they'd be like, no, it doesn't matter. You got to change it. But every now and then they'd be like, oh, yeah, that's fine.
I expected them to change it because we could have named him anything. It didn't have to be Uncle Chokey.
Yeah.
And then when it went through, we were all like, and it was based on fact. So I guess they bought it. And I didn't need to be like, it didn't need to be something that was unpalatable, but it was just funny. And I just thought it was so funny. It had to be in. So.
So some of the boards you did were, you worked on the Halloween special.
Yes, I love the Halloween special. Yeah.
Nursery Crimes.
Yeah.
I think that was an early favorite with the flesh-eating Pinocchio. That was yours.
Pinocchio.
I think you're also responsible for killing about 98% of Billy's pets.
Yeah. Yeah, put Billy with a pet in my episode, and I was very happy.
Yeah, you did. What is the one with the Arnold Schwarzenegger
Yeah.
sounding fish?
Little pork chop. Yep.
Wiggy Jiggy Jed was yours.
Yeah. Yeah. Infamous, evidently.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Cartoon Network top brass did not like Wiggy Jiggy Jed at all.
Yeah. And this
And
is
I think
mis-
it's both because he looks like an old school Hanna-Barbera character and because he sounds drunk.
Yeah. I didn't plan for him to sound drunk.
Well, no, that came from the voice actor who he's very funny. He's the guy that did Krang for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles way back when. But
I didn't know that.
We were
Okay.
just messing around in the booth, and he was like, "Hey, what if I make him sound kind of drunk?" And I was like, "It's hilarious." So yeah, let's give it a try.
Yeah, that wasn't my pitch at all, but when I heard him a little bit on the drunk side, I was like, okay.
Yeah, he's sort of like a
Jed, you know.
a drunk Huckleberry Hound.
And I don't know, to me, yeah, exactly. And to me, the humor was, you know, Billy wanted all three of these dogs. They're super different, and he just wanted a way to have all three. And you know, Grimm, he asked Grimm to do it, and I thought, well, what's it going to be? And that's what occurred to me. Like, what if it's an old school Hanna-Barbera character, just you know, who's got all those wisecracks and rhymes all of his language and quips and all that. I thought, I don't know, it was an opportunity to kind of play with that trope, you know. And I really liked that episode personally, so I had a fun time.
Yeah, me
with it.
too. Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of. I mean, Billy and Mandy was. Most of Billy and Mandy was satire, so I think just playing with stuff like that,
Yeah,
that was half the fun.
it made sense for the show to me. Yeah, maybe if the voice was different, they would have liked it more.
Did you have any particular favorite episodes that you wrote or worked on?
Oh, Nursery Crimes was my favorite. Yeah, for sure. Because when that one just poured out, because doing a parody of fairy tales is like, you know, that was a real sweet spot. And I think I was telling you, I did it, you know, we have a 6-week turnaround for an 11-minute episode to board and write it. I think I wrote that outline. Am I right?
Yeah, you did.
And I think you added the beat with
there
the
was,
wolf.
Yeah, we got a standards note, or we were too short. I can't remember what it was, but there was some reason I had to go in and add that scene.
Yeah. And I loved it anyway. I was like really glad it got added, you know. Touch my teeth, right? Wasn't it like the...
Yeah.
It was the Red Riding Hood section. And then he unzips at the end and Grandma's inside, I think is what it was.
I think so.
Yeah. Anyway, it was funny. And but yeah, that one came out. I was saying we have 6-week turnaround, and that one I was done in 2 weeks. And that is unheard of. You don't, it never comes out that fast. And I really like, you know, it was just funny, and all the humor just clicked and it just worked. Others came out much harder. So that's one that I really more than usually enjoyed doing, to parody all that stuff. Yeah. Other favorites, I liked Wiggy Jiggy Jed, and now I'm almost I'm sad that the network didn't, but whatever. One out of how many did I do, right?
Right.
Like, and maybe Major Cheese, I heard, was another one that didn't go over well.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
maybe that one.
But I that was my last storyboard, I think, on Billy and Mandy.
It was.
And I was going to go to another show, and it was just time and all that, and so I remember not being over the moon with that one, but that's the only one I would say that I didn't love doing.
Yeah, I think you created a lot of the really sort of memorable secondary characters, just sort of the one-offs. Like, I don't know, there were a lot of super cute characters like the nuns and...
Thank you, yeah.
Winston, the space creature.
Winston, yes.
I actually have people write to me and doing fan art of just Winston, the moon creature who was in one episode and had no dialogue.
Oh, that's right. Oh, I found that T-shirt online and I bought it.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
if I would have thought of it, I would have put it on for this. But yeah, I have a Winston T-shirt. He just really cracked me up. It's kind of inspired by the Pillsbury Doughboy. You know, so if Billy goes into space, Super Zero was the episode,
Yeah.
right? And I loved, actually, that one is a standout. I love doing that one too. You know, it's really gross, you know, shooting yogurt from his armpits. But that is just, to me, it spoke to me that's Billy. And maybe the gross things are, you know, they're for some people and maybe not for others. But I think it fit. I think it fit Billy, and it really gave me a kick. So, yeah.
I brought back Super Yogurt Billy for...
Yeah?
that, I don't know if you were still around for the Kraft cheese crossover special that they did.
No, I don't think it was.
yeah, they at the end they were like, when we just finished like all of our DVDs and all of our specials, and I was so relieved, and they were like, hey, here's another special. We're doing this big crossover sponsored by Kraft Cheese.
Yeah.
Where,
No.
where just all the shows have to somehow interact. So we got on like a phone meeting with like McCracken and Gendy and just everybody, and kind of ended up with this
No way.
space theme thing, an alien invasion that involved cheese somehow.
Did cheese come out of his armpits? No.
No, but there was like the cheese reaper, like grim-headed cheese wedge hat, and I think Mandy was Milk Mandy at the end. So they all had their dumb superhero costumes.
Where did they air this?
Cartoon Network. Kraft Cheese actually pulled out of the whole thing, so we were trapped with this cheese
Oh,
theme.
no.
It was really bizarre, and then we were the last show in the roster, so we had to like wrap up the whole story. And I was just like, I never wanted to do like a sci-fi episode,
Yeah.
especially after Billy and Mandy versus the Martians. I was like, that's our one sci-fi episode and we're done. And then I'm doing another sci-fi episode. So I think I lost my mind a little bit at the end, and I was like, get Yogurt Billy back in there and just make it crazy.
That's so cool. So he had
Spurg's head exploded.
a second life.
At the end. Because
No.
he had a chip in his brain.
Okay.
And then
I
he
gotta
was just
see
running
this.
around with no head.
I gotta say this. So it's not a video game.
No,
Okay.
This was an episode.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong then, because somewhere in the last, 10 years or something, I don't know where I saw this, but a video game of Billy running through some kind of maze and he's shooting yogurt out of his armpits.
Oh, I think they did do a web game where that happened.
Yeah. So maybe this yogurt spewing idea was something that had
you were onto something.
had some legs. Yeah. It spoke to me.
Take note, America.
Yeah. And I love the opening, that character, Captain Space Heifer, came up with him, I guess. And then Milkshake's the cat, right? He was in there already. Right?
Mm-hmm.
He was part of the show. But he got covered in the yogurt. And I remember the backgrounds when they were being done for that. I just thought they were so cool. And we painted them on actual bristle board.
We had Don Watson and Joe painting.
That's right.
On illustration board.
With just all the old school Hanna. I remember specifically Don worked on Flintstones, right?
Yeah,
Flintstones.
yeah.
Let me pronounce that. And he used all the techniques that the Flintstones, or some of them anyway.
Yeah, definitely. We had that one episode where, or several episodes actually, where there was sort of Flintstone throwback cavemen. And
Oh, yes.
Every time we would do that, he'd be like, "Come watch how we used to do it." And he'd do the roller and the sponge. And,
So cool.
yeah.
And they look great. They still do. I love that one.
Hey! I don't see no evil empire! All I see is rocks and pebbles with tiny shadows under them! And a crack!
And we're back.
Yeah. And so, what else? Yeah, I did the, there was the Western one.
The Tooth Fairy.
The Tooth Fairy one, which was a little unwieldy. I remember that one being pretty unwieldy, but I liked doing it,
Mm-hmm.
That Western
You
Tooth
did the
Fairy
very
guy.
first introduction of Spurg.
Oh, that was my very first.
That was your first board.
That was the
Billy
first
the Bully.
introduction of him?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
We didn't even know what he sounded like because we hadn't hired. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I think we were going to get somebody else, and then they didn't come in, so we were just like trying people in the booth out, and Greg came up with the high pitched Spurg voice.
Yeah, that great voice. Yeah, I love it. That was, remember when I got hired, it was just as a freelance storyboard
Mm-hmm.
for Billy and the Bully, and I remember just clicking with it right away. It was like the characters just kind of spoke to me. Like, I know that sounds weird, but
No, I mean, that's kind of how it went. Like, I was always excited to have new freelance people come in because, especially if we had an open slot, which we did. Because
So lucky.
A lot of the times you just get stuff and you'd be like, ugh, I gotta redo this whole thing because the characters just feel off. But you just clicked in right away and I was like, oh yeah, we gotta hire this guy.
when things like that happen, yeah, you recognize it, you go for it. I was so, because I know I wanted to work on the show. I was like, oh, this would be awesome if they like this enough, you know. So I just focused on having a really good time and making myself laugh, and it all went through. Did that joke about Billy wasn't he in Grimm's lap, and it was something about telling him a story, and he said he had to go to the bathroom,
I think that stayed in.
and that stayed, and he goes, oh wait, never mind, like he was done already or whatever. Yeah, I already did. Okay, was that Billy and the Bully?
I think so.
I think it was too. Anyway, I thought I'm going to do something. They'll probably cut this, but you know, I guess it stayed in, which is good.
And you did.
It's just silly, you know. Yeah.
Again, you did part of the Halloween special.
Yeah.
You did the second part, right? I can't remember exactly.
I
I think we divided it up because you took, I think, more of the comedy parts, and then Paul McAvoy, the other artist who worked on it, took the spooky stuff. I think, or did you do the whole thing?
I did the whole thing.
Okay.
What happened actually? Remember when they got into the mud pits with the attacking pumpkins?
Yeah.
You did all that.
I remember at the end, yeah, they just to make it more epic or whatever. I did a lot of the exploding pumpkin stuff, but
yeah.
I forget because I think Paul was in on the writing of the outline.
Yes.
And then you did the whole board.
And I showed Paul some of my boards, and he
right.
collaborated with me and had a few really great shot ideas.
That's what it was. Because
Yeah.
I remember there's like one or two shots that I'm like, that's a McAvoy.
That's a total McAvoy shot. He puts the horizon line really low and super graphic with so it makes you feel like the camera's low and it has an epic feel.
Right.
And I've used that. Like that's a really cool visual. And thank you, Paul. And Paul's awesome. And we laughed and had a really, really good time sort of putting our heads together in parts of it. But overall, yeah, it was who was the villain again?
Just Jack-o'-lantern.
Jack-o'-lantern, that was his name.
The prankster.
And doing a prankster was right up my alley. Just, you know,
Mm-hmm.
my dad's a bit of a prankster, so it just came really natural, you know. And
Yeah, that was great because it was our very first special, and I was
really?
Yeah, I
That's
just
so
felt
cool.
like there was all this extra pressure because it was 22 minutes, and I don't know. I was nervous, but I was just really happy with the way that you did Jack. So,
Thank you.
and that's another one where I just get a lot of fans who just love that character and wished he had come back, and he never did.
He never did he? Yeah, you never really brought him back. So he is secluded in that one episode, but a worthy one. I really do like it too. I don't know.
You did send him to hell at the end, so I
I
guess
did
he could have come back anyway. But
I did what at the end?
you sent him to hell, remember?
Oh, shit, that's right. I did send him to hell.
Which was probably our most hellish depiction of the underworld that we ever did. I think after that they were like, no more fire.
No more fire.
Yeah.
No more fire and brimstone. And I do remember one more thing about before the episode was put through background and all that, and you had gotten the board. You said it was a little bit long or something, and you came to me and you said, Brett, I'm having the hardest time because everything you put in is completely necessary for the story. So so I was like, and that came from doing those 7-minute episodes. Like I got really good at focusing on, so I could put a lot of story in, but it was all focused on on character, funny, moving the story. And I don't know, I guess I'm a believer in that. When an episode stops too long and hovers on a side thing, I'm kind of like, oh, come on, move it along.
Yeah.
Because it's like engagement, you know?
I feel like especially in our first season, like we just had some pacing problems, and I was like, move.
Yeah, move it. And I think that's, basically, it's like I don't want anyone to be watching it and be like, oh, I'm going to just get up, go to the bathroom, this is boring, or look at their phones, or, well, at the time they weren't phones. But
They're Blackberries.
They were Blackberries.
They weren't even Blackberries.
Yeah. But, and for me, basically, when I would read it to myself and pitch it out 100 times, it would be like, am I in? Is it keeping me interested? And when that answer came of yes, I'd be like, yeah, this is what I want to pitch and was excited about.
How is pitching? We talked a little bit about that this morning.
Oh,
but
the best. It's a lost art. Yeah, pitching on Billy Mandy was just great because the crew was all so fun and you guys all came in with good energy. It was always like excited for every single pitch, you know, and it was 30 people would stuff into that one small room. And I'd spend like, of course, an hour or 2 hours, like pinning up each storyboard page. And to me, I don't know if I'm not OCD, but I was a little bit like each one had to be pinned up, you know, straight and all that stuff. And it took time to really do it well. And then, you know, you get the old fashioned stick, you know, the long 2-3 foot stick, and you do all the voices and as best you can. And that's another thing about pitching as far as your drawing and composition. You want to draw it so people can read your small panel from across the room.
Right.
And that's just something you learn early on because you want people to get it and to get the visual and of course read your pitch. But, you know, someone who's like peeking, you know, 8 feet away across the room.
Right.
And generally they went over good. Like I knew when I got the laughs that, okay, this is working. And it's one of those things where the things you think they'll laugh at, sometimes they don't.
Right.
And then the things that you just kind of threw away and that are in there, big laughs. And I'm like, oh, okay. And you just go with it, you know.
Yeah, it really is kind of a lost art in that way, pitching, just because I feel like in those days, back in those days, it was all sort of about the clarity of the pose and just how clean everything was and readable, like you said, from a distance.
Yeah.
And then we kind of got into the high def era, and I think, you know, then there's so much more that you can fit on the screen and that people can absorb while watching, you know, a big high def screen. But now we've sort of gone back to like where everybody's watching stuff on their phone. So I think, you know.
Oh, that's true.
I feel like we sort of lost a lot of the simplicity and the clarity from those early cartoons.
I think you're right. Yeah, that's an interesting observation for sure. Yeah, it's far surpasses pitching today, even though I don't mind pitching today. But
yeah, pitching today is usually over Zoom, right?
Over Zoom.
Almost always.
Always over Zoom. These days, literally, I haven't been to an in-person pitch. Actually, let me think about it.
It's been
2016. And when, of course, that was
around then.
That was digital. That was when I was on Star at Disney, and we would all gather in the giant conference room with the huge table, and there's a giant screen, and there's someone at the front, you know, pressing the button. Yeah,
it was Disney. I think the last time I went to a full live pitch.
So at least you're with everybody, the group, but you don't get to. You know, when you're pitching, it's a bit of a performance too. So it's visceral is the right word. That's kind of you get your energies. You got adrenaline going. For me to sit there and just use my index finger to press a button, it was against my
It gets
instinct.
even stranger, I think, when it's just on Zoom. Like when I was on Jellystone, people would pitch, and they would pitch to the whole crew. Like you'd have, you know, like 30 little tiny panels with people's faces in it.
Yeah.
But then in order to conserve bandwidth, everybody would turn off their microphone and their camera. So then it's just a person alone somewhere in their house, in their room.
So sad.
Pitching as hard as they can to just like this blank, silent wall.
It's so sad.
And it could be the funniest pitch in the world, but then you get done and they'd be like, did I do okay? Was that all right?
No idea. Yeah, and that feedback is, oh my God. Well, when you've had it and then you live without it, you really notice it. But in today's world, I guess you just learn to live without it.
Yeah.
They've never known the difference, so you don't know what you don't know. But it was like when I would first pitch. Yeah, not only is my adrenaline and my excitement going, and sometimes nervous, whatever. You know, there's all those things going on in your body and your head, and all I could do is use my finger. And everyone puts their mics on silent, and I'm like, so then. You really can't care what people think is really what or you can't care, not what people think, but you can't care whether you get a laugh or not because you just can't hear them. But when you did get a laugh, it's like this balloon's blowing. It's like getting more and more like, you know, you get more confident that, hey, this is landing. You want to know what you do is entertaining and that people like it. You just do. We don't work in a bubble. I can entertain myself all day long, but you want, you know.
Yeah, you want to know. You want to know you're doing good.
Yeah, you want to know you're doing good. And so that was a a validating function, you know? Like I think about vaudeville days in the 20s. It's kind of a random, but you know, when they came up with a skit and it didn't get any laughs, they'd be like, well, we're not doing that one again. And when it got laughs, they're like, yeah, this is it's ringing a bell for people for whatever reason. And you can't manufacture that stuff. What makes people laugh? Like what makes us laugh, right? It's it's not a mystery, but it is sometimes something will make us laugh like 20 years ago that doesn't make people laugh now. Mm-hmm. It's because the culture has changed, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you and I talk a lot about just character-driven comedy, and that's kind of, I think we both love that a lot.
Yeah.
How do you feel like that's being handled in modern times?
People, I think, sometimes executives focus on storytelling, which is good, but plot-driven things, you know, and then you find then you put your character into this maze, you know, this, if it's a rat's maze, they write the maze first, and then they drop a mouse in or whatever, you know, but it's the other way around. I think for both you and I, like first we think of what situation would the character respond to in an interesting way or in a funny way, you know, and then I sort of let it be more organic and you know.
Yeah, I feel like that's part of what I have to do in order to entertain myself. In order to entertain myself enough to actually finish what I'm doing, is there has to be something for me to discover or some element of surprise left while I'm working on it. So yeah, I think it is very much that the executives want to know exactly where everything's going before you start.
Yeah,
and it leaves sometimes very little room for that kind of discovery.
That is so well said and so much better than I would have said it. I remember when I wrote outlines for a while on Billy, like once, I think after the first season, it was really clicking, so I would write an outline, I'd present it, and they'd usually go through. But it was so great because since I wrote the outline, I especially knew that I could change whatever I wanted. So once the outline sold, I had my liberty to be organic in the process. And that, rarely happens today in my experience with, in the last, I don't know how many years, it hasn't happened for a long time.
Yeah, we in some ways had very little oversight, especially in the early days of Cartoon Network.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever told you this, but the reason that I have, aside from the Big Pick Weekend where people voted on Billy and Mandy, the other reason that I got a show in the first place was because I just completely threw out an outline from I Am Weasel. It was called, I don't even remember what it was called at the time, but it was basically Weasel on the outline was riding a moped through the Alps and fell and broke his leg. And there was like a whole thing going on with that show where all the outlines had Weasel and Baboon like in separate locations. So they'd be like watching each other on TV. And I was like, no, let's, put them together. But this outline, I just had no idea what to do with it. So I ended up changing it to I Am Motorbikini, I think is what it ended up being called, where Weasel has invented a bikini that transforms him into a motorcycle. And Baboon is like test driving him in the desert, and they end up, something gets broken and they can't stop. So it's sort of like Speed, where they keep having to go faster and faster. And finally they break the space-time continuum. And I just remember I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, if they're going to fire me. And then
amazing.
Jay saw it and was like, yeah, this is amazing. Do you want to do like a pitch or?
So that's what, I didn't actually know that story. That's amazing. Yep. Really creative and unusual and like, what? Right? So Billy and Mandy sort of was the pitch for that, sort of spawned out of that.
I think that's when they sort of took notice of me as a storyboard artist and wanted to see what else I could do.
Here's a weirdo. Let's get him going. Yeah, because Cartoon Network, loved the weirdos, the good kind, right? And just really unusual. They were just open to so much back then, like it wasn't necessarily the weirder the better, but it was open to, and nothing felt like a cookie cutter kind of show, Whereas
that was part of their thing was they sort of prided themselves on not having a house style. So, everything looked like it was made by the people it was made by. There was no sort of like at the time, especially, I think
Yep.
Nickelodeon had sort of there was a lot of Klasky Chupo and everything
Yeah.
was Butch Hartman kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, all due respect to Butch Hartman stuff, it was Fairly Odd is a very, very fun looking show. But yeah, they, like today it feels like, you know, we have, you know, SpongeBob, and then it felt like every pilot they made, this nameless studio made, was, it felt like a similar dynamic, you know, it just had the same energy and the same, but this is like 10 years ago even. I haven't seen a pilot for a long time from Nickelodeon, but yeah, they just felt there's a sameness to them, and I think that comes from the
I think that was
executives.
more of a Disney thing, honestly, than Nickelodeon, because
Maybe so.
Nick had Invader Zim as well, so there was
that's
a fair
true.
amount of variety going on.
At that time, I guess I'm talking about like later towards 2017, 18, 19. It was just kind of, you know, that was actually not just Nick, all of them kind of lost that edge of like, let's do something new and different. So like at Cartoon Network and at Nick, then you're right, like Zim and, you know, of course SpongeBob and Cat Dog and all those shows they were all specific, like I wouldn't mistake either one for the other.
Do you remember MTV's Liquid Television?
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of what early Cartoon Network reminded me of.
Yeah.
It's just, or a Spike and Mike festival where you just kind of, it was much more indie and
That's
you got
so true.
a larger variety of styles and tones.
And it was just, I guess it was just in the air. Like this is what we did as a culture. Like we were open. We wanted, in a way, I'd say unique voices, like actual. Oh, there's a show about, you know, something very different from what another show's about, or the tone of storytelling is very different. Like Kids Next Door was super different than, to me anyway. Ed, Ed and Eddie was very different. Of course, to Billy and Mandy, to, you know, there's such a long list, right? What was the camp show? Camp Laszlo, you know, they all had their own vibe. And so no matter what I watched on Cartoon Network, I always thought, well, they're always interesting. I liked them all.
Yeah.
You know, I like some better than others, of course, but that's, you know, we have taste. But yeah. So really, really sad that that's not around. But the truth is, I would say not to be dark and morose, because, you know, I did work on Billy and Mandy, so I have that tendency. But everything goes in cycles. So like if we're in a less like open to that vibe era, then you know, life finds a way, like in Jurassic Park, you know, it'll come back. So have faith, you know.
Yeah, I forgot you also created Malaria.
Yes. I was very surprised to hear how she became like a Halloween costume, very popular, and a lot of people like.
Yeah, and I get a lot of fans writing to me telling me my wife looks like Malaria, which she kind of does.
yeah, a little bit, yeah, for sure. That was one of my 7-minute ones, very early on.
Very early.
In fact, Grim in Love, it's called, right?
Mm-hmm.
It might have been, I did Billy and the Bully.
It might have been your second one.
It might have been my second one. And very clear memories of doing it. I did it a lot at the studio. I worked at home a lot, you know, later on, just to focus and whatnot. But I remember where my cube was. I worked right across from the pitch room. And yeah.
I was going to say, did you start working at home because of the Halo thing, or?
Kinda.
Okay.
I wasn't.
We were talking about this earlier too, where this was when Halo 2, I think it was, Halo 2, Halo 3, that era came out. There was like a Halo craze at the studio. We also had Nerf gun fights around the same time. But from like noon to 1 would just be, you know, the Halo hour, so everybody would be playing Halo. And then lunch would end, and, you know, I'd go back to work. And then like an hour and a half later, I would, you know, stop and think about something and maybe take my headphones off, and I would just hear shooting, and I'd be like, there's still Halo going on?
What's working? I mean, it's important to play.
I can see how that would be distracting.
Well, early on I was across from the marble room. Remember the marble room with that wall of marbles? So that was before Halo. Marbles. I think this was a later season when everyone was playing Halo, but my cube was right there too. So yeah, it was loud.
So that was another pitch room, wasn't it? I think eventually it became like Tram and Sam's area, but for a while I think it was a pitch room.
Oh, it was the marble room?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a pitch room. That's where I pitched my first, and it
Oh,
was
okay, yeah.
a small room, and I pitched like the first maybe all my 7-minute ones in there, and I really, Malaria was a great, I really just clicked with that dynamic, and having, the subject of falling in love is always a fun one to play with, and
yeah, you did Crushed with Piff as well.
yeah. Oh my God, you're bringing back a lot of memories.
You did a lot of boards.
I did do a lot of boards. You forget so many. You start to you forget. But I really loved that stupid name Piff, and I initially had a hard time coming up with like a funny,
that was
weird
my
name.
voice acting debut.
Oh, you did. Would you go to the dance?
I don't even remember how that happened, where they just needed somebody, and I was like, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And then I got in there, and I was like, oh no, I'm all nervous. I was like, I guess that's okay because he's supposed to be nervous.
That so works. Yeah. Would you go to the dance with me? And his glasses crack, right, and all that, and he got the bloody nose, and.
Oh yeah, Irwin got the bloody nose. That was a standards fight, I think, as well.
Irwin got the bloody nose.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. That's right. Irwin got the bloody nose because he was asking. He was also doing the thing where he's asking Mandy to the dance. Was it Mandy?
Yeah.
And I don't know who connects this, but I did a parody of Grease at the end where she is sucking on the lollipop, and tell me about it, stud, and then she drops the lollipop and puts it out as if it's a cigar, I guess, or a cigarette, and. Not that I intended a cigarette joke or anything, but it's just parodying, Grease, and it worked. It was fun, just a quick little tip of the hat or whatever. But nothing like, having the coolest kid in school turn out to be like the most nervous, human being in the world too.
After Billy and Mandy, you worked on a couple other Cartoon Network shows. And now you're at Nickelodeon, yeah?
Yeah.
Working on the Patrick Show.
I landed on the Patrick Show, and I love it. Yeah, it's like the only show that really echoes the spirit of what Cartoon Network was back when you and I worked together. And
yeah, I had a short time on that show, and it was a lot of fun to work on.
Yeah, and well, maybe you'll come back. That's what,
Who knows?
Yeah, could happen.
That'd be awesome. What is your title over there, so I don't butcher it?
Supervising director. So I went from, of course, board writing for 20 years, as long as I went from Billy and Mandy all the way through Uncle Grandpa and whatever else. So I went from the board writing, since I just know it so well, they appreciated that, and so I shepherd the storyboards that the storyboard writers do on our show, and we sometimes talk them out. Other times, they just bury their heads and show me stuff. And
did that feel like a pretty natural transition as far as jobs go? At
first, no, because suddenly I'm like, oh, the title director makes you think like, well, I've got to direct this, I've got to call shots and all this. I can do that, but when you get someone who's passionate, like, the way we board wrote for so long, you don't want to go in there and noodle a bunch of, either visuals, or you might noodle the language a little bit, or you have to edit. I do a lot of editing, which is what you basically did with my boards, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a form of directing that gives voice to each episode, and it honors the voice of whoever, writes and boards it. But in a way, it's like they have like when I was on Billy Mandy, we have the baby, and then the rest of the production takes it to college and gets it ready for the world. And that's the way I've always seen it. So and I really enjoy talking about this stuff and joking around. And sometimes when someone's not clear or they're learning, that's an opportunity to kind of share things that I've done that just really work. That basically it's like, you got to think of the audience, and not, you can be in your own head and think it's really funny, but then you have to pitch it back to yourself as if you're your own, your mom or your grandfather's looking at it. And then you're like, oh, my grandmother would not get this. Like, what am I saying? So I usually would not that I would write down, it would just make it clearer. Like what's a way to get to the juice of this and not make you look away, you know. So when someone would do something that would kind of drag on, I'd be like, well, I was a little bored in that section. Could you move it along? So I definitely direct in those ways, and then, you know, I do the animatic and I help, you know, do the editing process with sound effects and all that junk, and help with the design, you know, stuff as well, with whatnot. So I love it. I love it too. And they offered me doing board writing when I came on, but by that point I directed on Animaniacs and on Star versus the Forces of Evil, 2 shows, and that's like pretty much an 8-year block of just doing this role. So I thought, board writing, it's been so long, which I feel like with the right show, I would just jump right back into. But I wasn't sure about Patrick. When I took they said, which one do you want to do? I wasn't sure. Are they going to be, how much are they going to, will I be, you know, we're in a different era. So are they going to micromanage and be a little, and they don't. They let us really be super creative, that's why I keep pinching myself. We would get away with jokes. And when I say get away, I don't mean we would try to do things that are inappropriate or anything, but it's more like just funny. It's just funny that this happened. And, you know, of course, we don't, you know, we know what to steer away from, but they wouldn't flinch, and it'd be like, this works, and it's just in the culture of SpongeBob, and it works, you know, which is
that's great, because SpongeBob is such a big property that with a lot of the, you know, big name properties, I feel like there's just so much oversight and so many people looking at it that it gets more and more difficult to quote unquote get away with anything at all.
Yeah, to write something funny.
Yeah,
because, you know, humor has.
You don't have to answer this, but was Animaniacs like that? Because I got an offer early on to work on Animaniacs, and I was like, that sounds like it's going to be painful. Like I just picture Steven Spielberg hovering over everything you do. I don't know if that's the way it was, but
it was like that. Yeah. I mean, I'm grateful for the experience, and I met a lot of great people and really I learned a lot. But it was script driven for starters, and very writer driven. And of course, I think the original Animaniacs was a tongue twister. Animaniacs was script driven as well. So it was a culture. So they had writers' rooms where all the writers who were specific to doing funny dialogue and constructing, you know, a script, then they'd give it to us, and we'd be like, this is really talky, you know, or this is going on forever. Of course, the show is talky. It's the Marx Brothers.
And this is the just to clarify, this is the
reboot.
Animaniacs reboot. Yeah.
Please. I'm not that old, because I think I was maybe just coming in the business when the Animaniacs was it 98 or something, or So I was still a young, you know, 20-year-old or whatever. But it was a little bit, you know, high stakes. It was high production value, and Spielberg was involved. So he didn't come to the studio but once. And of course, he was doing West Side Story at the time, which, you know, kept him really busy. Of course, he's Steven Spielberg. So he would, you know, he wanted every single story, every single animatic submitted to him. But they would pile up because he just didn't have time. Yeah. So then he would give notes like, well, after they're colored, sometimes and animated, and if he didn't like one, they just pulled the plug.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened to, and what destroyed ultimately, the Blues Brothers show that I was working on.
Oh my God, Blues Brothers!
That was my first, after my internship, that was my first like real paid gig.
Yeah,
and like I was just like, this is how the industry works, and but. Like looking back now, it's just like there were so many red flags and so many problems that I should have known that it wasn't going to make it. But
that was your very first job.
Yeah,
so you didn't know what to compare it to. Yeah,
right. But we would and I was just a character designer, and I would do, you know, like a caricature of Dennis Rodman with all his tattoos, and I would send it in, and it would come back with like 30 handwritten notes on it from like Judy Belushi and like just all the Belushis, Peter Aykroyd, the producers, the writers, just everybody would be like, is this sombrero too big? I think it's too big. And
Really?
you'd be
Things like that?
Okay, yeah. And it
You
was
mean
just
Dan Aykroyd?
Really,
Or
no, Dan Aykroyd wasn't actively involved.
I wouldn't think,
his brother
yeah.
was, but
is that his brother? Okay, I didn't know that. So they would pick on like really dumb small things.
yeah, it was just I don't like the mustache, and then you'd have to go back and redo the mustache.
Oh my gosh.
'cause, you'd be like,
Yeah.
8 weeks had passed, and you'd be like, well, Judy Belushi doesn't like the mustache, so I got to go back and
Unbelievable.
take the mustache out.
And they don't know. They think there's an A and B camera. I don't like
Yeah,
that shot. Yeah.
Hi, dog. There's a dog under the table.
Yeah, we have a dog down here. Shh.
She's very sweet.
Yeah. Lay down. Lay down. Good girl.
Yeah, so...
Yeah. Those were, that was early on. What was I on at? That was at Film Roman, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just missed each other on Felix the Cat.
That's what I was trying. My brain was like, what is that at Film Roman? I did the Fuzzy Bunny show. That was my first board writing job ever. I did so much material, I guess. I made such a long story that they made it into a 2-parter, which was a relief because either that or if they didn't like it, they would cut it down or just redo it. So I went ahead and I did the Fuzzy Bunny show. And were you on staff or were you freelance?
On Felix?
Yeah.
I was just an intern, so...
Oh, that's right, okay.
I was an intern on this... It's just sort of the tail end of the second and final season. So by the time I got there, it was the production people and Craig Kelman and Pat Venturo had I saw his name on the door and he would come in and out, but never while I was there. So I didn't actually meet him until years later.
Oh, really, Pat? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and then just me. And I, since I was so eager, I'd be like, well, what can I do? And they'd be like, you want to do a background? And I'd be like, yeah.
That's so
So
cool.
just anything they'd throw at me,
It's like what they call the Wild West, right? Like they're just open to let's make this stuff happen. We have artists and we have writers.
There's nobody else left. I don't want to do it. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Yeah, I knew Craig because we had worked together on something. So he thought of me when it came to this freelance spot on Felix, and he was producing it, right?
Yeah, this is Craig Kelman, who's
Craig Kelman.
I think
The amazing,
one of the top kids TV designers. Like if I was going to hire a character designer for almost anything, I'd be like, please, Craig.
And a great storyteller too, and just a great guy. So I still keep in touch with Craig. Yeah, we're good friends. So, but yeah, I was really grateful for that. We cracked each other up a lot and came up with developed the Fuzzy Bunny idea. But of course, I disappeared for the 6 weeks or whatever they gave me, and they came back and you're in the right place when who you show it to is like, that's funny and let's do it. And then come to pass, someone reached out to me on, where did they reach out to me on? Email. Someone saw that I worked on the Fuzzy Bunny show, I guess, and were asking me questions about the culture back then. And River, be quiet, sweetheart. You be quiet, okay? They were asking me about the culture and how there was this political drama between the executives and the writers, and that the Fuzzy Bunny they wanted to know if the Fuzzy Bunny was written as some kind of intentional jab to the executives, and that I was involved. And I'm like, look, I just picked up a storyboard and made it as funny as I could. But yeah, I guess I was surprised that Felix is, I have a better way to say it, kind of remembered, because people do seem to remember it, And I watch them, and there are some, Tim Bjorglund worked on it, and he's really good. And I watched the Fuzzy Bunny one that I did, and I kind of cringe a little bit, because I think I would redo, of course, a lot of things, or maybe re-edit it, or maybe do the music different, or whatever. But of course,
Sure, yeah.
That's the way it goes. But I felt really lucky to basically, I would hold out for doing a board writing job, as opposed to, I did in-betweening and other things. But I just wanted to do the storyboard writing.
Yeah, same.
So I would stay unemployed for, as long as I could bear it. And then until I poked around enough to get that.
Yeah, I ended up doing some in-betweening for Tim Bjorklund on his late night black and white stuff for Cartoon Network. It was
Oh,
They would show old cartoons, but he would kind of do these bumpers and an introduction.
that's
And
cool.
I remember just weeks of like grinding out in between after in between. And then I was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right? It's kind of good to know, you know, because you
Mhm.
know what it takes to.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely. I'll get into AI in a moment, but I feel like just these days it's
Yeah.
like a lot of people lose out on sort of those grindy but fundamental skills that lead to, other things. It's like I wouldn't say I'm a great animator, but I can animate and I know,
Yes.
you know, enough that I feel like I can do a solid storyboard because you do have to, I mean, as you know, especially with like the Patrick show, you are doing animation to some degree.
Yeah, to some degree. I don't do the final animation, but
But you guys lay things out layout style where it might be small, but like all the key poses and all the information you need is there.
which is really another unprecedented kind of thing in TV animation. Like, it's because it's SpongeBob and they have a little more wiggle room. I'm not gonna say they're generous with the budget, but I would say they invest more
Yeah.
in that regard. So the board writers, like what I did and you've done and whatnot, would do a board. That's good, but then we have a whole nother team to follow that up that I manage as well, and they basically do what you call character layout, which is all the extreme poses and sometimes the in-betweens. If a character says something and like if they say hello in a funny way or whatever, that second team will actually do the mouth shapes and maybe what they call them plussers, which is a weird word.
Yeah, you remember on Billy and Mandy, like I feel like if you watch a Billy and Mandy episode, and this isn't a bad thing, but I can always tell who drew the episode
That
because
makes me happy to hear.
the overseas studio would essentially just trace the board, and even though I eventually gave them exhaustive instructions on how to do it, like
Amazing.
just the way people drew the characters would leak through, which in some ways is very cool. But I think on something like SpongeBob, where there is more oversight and more expectation that they look a certain way, like that's the investment you're talking about is putting things kind of on model that you would normally have to just be like, please overseas studio, please put it on model.
do it right. And the Cartoon Network, there was wiggle room, like on Chowder when I worked on that. They would send my scribbly, or I wouldn't say scribbly, but sometimes I wouldn't draw the hand complete or something. They would trace off, but they would rein it in.
I feel like to some degree at Cartoon Network, I preferred boards that were a little looser like yours because if people made them too clean, then they would just literally trace it over, and if you left it a little loose, then they'd have to be like, okay, well, it's clearly Billy, but I got to draw Billy.
That is a sad thing. I think the board should be the rough blueprint. They shouldn't be the finished, even in the plussing like the SpongeBob universe. But a lot of people treat it like it's a little too clean. So then, of course, when something clean gets traced again overseas, it just loses life at every stage. So rough but clear is the way I try to approach it, and it really works. I get some really loose and some fun stuff sometimes. It's hard to to kind of identify, well, what's too loose and what's too tight, and then people are like, I don't know, and I'm like, but I seem to like, that's probably why I'm in this role. I seem to be able to find those things and make it work.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, you're one of the few people I know who's still employed right now.
I know.
Congratulations.
I know. I feel like I'm on this island, and I somehow, it's partial luck, it's partial my experience and survival skills and whatever. But I'm grateful, and like I've said, and I love it as well. But yeah, to me, it's like that. I think I've said this before. It's like that scene in Fantasia with the dinosaurs and the water's disappearing, and everyone's like, everyone's looking for the water. They're starting to, kill each other to get the water, and then eventually, and they all die. It's a dark thought, but in a way, seasons. Like when I was a little kid, it was like Hanna-Barbera cartoons in the 70s, and that was like the desolate zone for all those great animators in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. They were in their 60s and 70s doing these things, some of them. And it was an echo, a fraction of what they were able to do. But all that wealth of knowledge was in all those cartoons.
And by the time you and I got into the business, I think, I mean, most of those people had dropped off, but there were still the survivors. There were your Dave Brains and your Robert Alvarez's and Cliff Voorhees and people that made it through the dry spell.
And there was even a Warner Brothers director. Oh shoot! Great, I brought him up. I can't think of him, but he worked back in the '40s on. He directed not a lot of the cartoons, but a handful of them, and it'll hit me when I'm not thinking about it. But but they were around. They worked on Tiny Toons and stuff like that. So it was cool. And now, it's like changing of the guards. Now we're like a little bit on that end. And sure. I'm again just excited to get to do the thing that I'm good at, and in a way that on a show that I really like with people that which is kind of rare right now. So I thought a minute ago when you were talking about Cliff, an episode popped into my mind with Billy and Mandy. What was the one with Billy's dad and there was the heavy metal episode, Purple Filth?
Battle of the Bands.
Battle of the Bands, yeah. Love that. I love doing that episode.
Yeah, and Mogar, another
Mogar
character who's actually still just Billy's dad, but that people frequently bring up, even though he was in one episode.
Oh, they do, huh? And Mogar, it really cracked me up.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of Billy's speech patterns came from you too. Like you would really pose out the mouth shapes and yeah. I think the yeah might have come from you.
I think it did come from me. Yeah, I think I based that on. There's this guy Mike Moon who worked at Disney.
I had no idea that was.
Well, I only heard him like once. I heard him down the hallway, and he was like, yeah, like that.
Now that you said it, I will never be able to.
Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Sure. And I thought it was. I mean, he didn't do it all the time, but he did a little bit.
He was the art director on Foster's.
That's right. And nice guy. And so anyway, that's just kind of like that enthusiasm because I see Billy as hyped up on sugar a lot, basically like a little over enthusiastic. And but yeah, Mogar really got me. And that Purple Filth song was written by a friend of yours. Was it?
That was much like Voltaire. It was guys that I knew from going out to the goth clubs.
Oh, no way. Okay.
So I just went up and was like, hey, do you want to do a song for the show? And they were like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And I think that was the band broke up like right after that song. But
they did?
Or maybe before, because I think that was just the sort of lead guy.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
It was a pretty good song too. And but yeah, when I remember coming up with how to get Billy's dad from them. I'm sorry, this cracks me up still. It's like that's the thing you want when you do these. I don't know why it tickles you or it makes you laugh, but yeah, when he flew down to the stage and then he realized he couldn't. I mean, it's not like anything that mind blowing.
Old school cartoon.
Kind of old school cartoon. It just cracked me up, and I thought because Billy's dad was another character I loved doing because being having a great authority and being really saying the dumbest things you can think of. You see where it comes from. That was the problem with Billy that I did. When he was rolling in the mud with the white shirt. We got dogs barking here. Let me close the door. Yeah. Dog break. Dog break. Okay, am I going? Okay.
No,
okay. Yeah. Anyway, so Patrick Show, Billy and Mandy, Chowder,
Starboard's Force
good stuff.
Evil.
Yeah, Start. That was a very different kind of language for me. So I don't know if it's worth sharing, but as an artist and a writer, loving films, getting challenged with doing different kinds of shows has really been I highly recommend it. But though I drag my heels
I
through some of
agree.
them.
It's
Yeah.
even there's some things where I'm like, I don't like necessarily to draw anatomically correct people or
Yeah.
three-dimensional machinery like cars, but it's like sometimes you got to do it. So it's like I ended up doing a Scooby-Doo where
Yes.
everybody is basically proportional, and in the one that I did, everybody's driving cars around. So it was,
So hard.
yeah, it was a lot of work, but I think it came out all right.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like when there's stakes on you and there's pressure, it's like you find the skills, or you find it. You just keep doing it again. And I remember I did when I worked on Star versus Force of the Evil. The first one I did was Star has to learn how to ride a bicycle, and put me drawing bikes. Forget about it. So I sat and I looked at bikes. I drew my shorthand of a bike I'm not kidding, probably at least 50 to 100 times on 11 by 17 pages, just over and over, until I didn't have to think about it from every angle, And they didn't have to be correct, they just had to look right.
Right.
So then when I got to boarding, it was it wasn't something that slowed me down, and another thing I would say, I worked on Family Guy. That was my first official job in animation, season 1 and 2, and then whatever it got canceled in 2 or 3. I forget which, but and I hated it. I liked the show. I thought it was funny.
A little bit of stuff for the second season, some boarding. I'm not even sure if they used it, but I do remember. Much like the Simpsons, because I never finished my Simpsons test because I was just
Simpsons is
hard. Everything is just so mathematical.
It's so hard.
It felt a little bit like that, where just everything had to be.
It was
completely dead on, and Seth had a very particular sense of timing.
He did, and only him and Peter Shin could draw those characters, and they actually looked alive. They looked good. Oh no, there's other people, of course, but they were there when I was there, and. They just look great. And when I drew them, it just wasn't in my wheelhouse at all. I mean, literally, I don't know how I got the job, but they really needed people. And I would, the best I could, if you made the eyes just a little bit too big on Peter or too small, different character. So I'm like, well, how do you do this? So I would trace off the model sheet. I try to do it in a loose way. And then everything just felt like serious heavy lifting, work. Even when I shorthanded it, there's just no way. So when I got onto something like Billy and Mandy or many other shows, just free. But I will tell you, it did it honed in my draftsmanship skills. When you force yourself to try to hit a certain target, as much as you don't like it, it just gets in you, And another thing I learned was how simple Family Guy was sitcom style staging, just flat staging, I Love Lucy, sitcom, 3-camera setup, and super easy to read. Let the characters carry everything and let them do the funny. You don't have to do crazy angles. In fact, when I started, that's where I got all notes, because I watched a lot of Looney Tunes and other stuff. Right. And I was putting in skylines and weird Dutch angles for no reason. I was whatever.
I talked a little bit about this with Tom Werbert and Greg Miller, but sometimes I do like to throw myself more complications just to see if I can do it. So once or twice an episode, I'll be like, I'm going to make this whole room rotate, 180 degrees, or I'm going to do an extreme upshot with dialogue, and I have to figure out all the malice. And I don't know why I do it to myself.
It keeps you on your toes, and I don't know, maybe it keeps things more interesting.
Yeah, I feel like you learn something.
It's scary though.
Yeah, it is.
Because you're on the high wire with the deadline.
I think, I do like to scare myself sometimes, but then every now and then I'm like, why did I do this?
Yeah, when you raise your hand in a room and they need something done, and you're like, oh, this thing that you're drawing bikes, for instance. I said, I'll do that board, and I was like, what was I thinking? It was a funny outline, so I really liked doing it in the end. But speaking of vehicles, I just posted some screenshots from Hog Wild. That was another episode I did, And I remember, and I looked at it, and it was a lot looser than some of my other boards. Or you would probably correct me. You probably have a better vision of what was loose and what wasn't in my boards or whatever. But to me, it looked like a little looser than some I did, and because it was because of those motorcycles, you know.
Right.
It was like, but you know, it's been a long time since I did it. Looking at them, I'm like, well, it's still readable.
Yeah,
and the shots are there.
We were fortunate that both you and Mark Perry were
Yes,
into
Mark.
the Rat Fink stuff, so he went and just went ham on those
He
motorcycles.
loved that. He came to me like he was so excited to work on that episode. He kept asking when will it be
Right.
done, and
Yeah, Mark was our art director during that time, and also a fan of Rat Fink. So
yeah, he was in the end, and I'm so glad that he was there, you know, to do that, because he would do lineups of. So I knew he was going to do it. So as a backstory, I knew he was going to follow this up and really design them. So I was very loose with how I illustrated. You know, I had rows of all these Rat Fink kind of monstery characters on these crazy chopper bikes from the 70s or 60s or whatever. Easy Rider, you know, the long forks and all this. So with the fire and the smoke and then the shot, and it was just like on a Post-it, you know, whatever,
Right.
4 by
2 by
3 or whatever.
3.5.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, this is now today in today's world on Toon Boom, I could blow the panel way big and draw something
Right.
pretty nice. And to be honest, I think I would do it tighter now, of course. But I also had the deadline, and I was also trying to be funny and get lots of good coverage of them. You know, the gags of the motorcycles whipping through a normal like Americana scene and transforming everyone that they passed like in front of the supermarket into monsters, you know. So yeah, anyway, good stuff.
Good stuff indeed.
It was. So just that was a challenge is what I was trying to come back to. And yeah, Clarence was a challenge. I worked on Clarence at Cartoon
Oh yeah,
Network.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and that was in like 2013. I don't even know how I got that job because it is kind of out of my vernacular, but I just kept getting notes and I just kept acclimating myself to it. And, you know, like when I first came out of college, I'd be like, oh, well, this isn't my style. I'm not going to do this. But then, yeah, when you work long enough, you realize, well, can I do this? And then when you do, a little germ of it gets into your work going down the line. And all of those things create kind of just a wider spectrum of what you can and can't do.
Right.
And so I feel more confident in like handling different kinds of things. I don't prefer to do anything sitcom or Family Guy. I don't know if you could pay me enough, really. But
I hear what you're saying. It's like I have definitely done stuff that I don't feel like I was necessarily qualified for or excited about.
yeah,
But it does feed into your skill set and sort of inform what you are capable of, which
And
I think it's important to grow as an artist.
yeah, to grow as an artist and to, I don't know, feel good like you climbed that mountain and you know you did something different with, because you know when we do the same thing, it's kind of going back to the same well where you just kind of, you know, you can get into ruts and get into like, you know, similarities. Not that that's a bad thing if that's your style. That's cool.
Sure, yeah. I feel like to some degree I fight having a style, and I don't know why. It's like I sort of assume that I don't have a style.
Oh, that's so interesting.
And then I always have to be reinventing what I'm doing. So it's like I'm like, well, what does this character's eyes look like? And I'm like, why am I not one of these people that just sits down and knows immediately what this is going to look like?
It's so funny. That's why I work in my sketchbooks a lot and I draw and whatever, post on Instagram or whatever. But whatever comes to me, I'll just draw. And a lot of it is maybe stuff in the language of all the visual cartoons I've worked, you know, like the way we've done eyes and the way. But I'm not thinking about that stuff when I'm drawing. I'm thinking of an expression. Or, you know, sometimes I'm just letting a line go and it's starting to talk to me. It's like looking at the clouds and like you start to see shapes and then interesting things come out. And then it's just like that organic way of writing storyboards we talked about, like character driven, like, well, what's going to happen next? You know, what's funny? What strikes me as funny, you know?
Yeah, usually during these, I talk to people about like what their advice would be for up and coming animators, and now I'm like, don't do it. I don't know what the advice is.
Yeah, don't do it. Run.
I you know, it always comes down to just like do something independent, and that's kind of how you
Yeah.
get people's attention these days. But I don't know. Do you have anything
I think that nails it.
you would say is
I would say write what you know, and do something that you love, not do something that fills some kind of thing you think people want to see, you know. Do it, something that you want to see that you've never seen before, or maybe you've seen it, but you love it so much you want to do your version of it. And there's going to be sweat and tears, but also fun. So in the gauntlet of it, like sometimes it starts as some hard work to be disciplined and have a routine, because to finish stuff we have to give ourselves our own deadlines, and so that's a skill. I think I really was spoiled by working on so many great shows, you know, to have a deadline, so I couldn't you know, wander or explore too much, because I'm an explorer. I like to just question, and what if it's this, what if it's that, and oh, I really like that, oh, isn't that funny. And I always want to find the next thing that's maybe even better. But sometimes that's, oh, I'm on this hike and now I wrote myself into a corner. And,
right?
oh, wait, actually, yesterday when I was doing that beat about this, that actually was really good. I'm just going to go back to that and just put all this stuff away, you know, which is part of the process.
Yeah, sure.
But,
every now and then you end up, I got to redo those 30 pages.
Yep, and that hurts.
Yeah.
That is painful. So but you can't get attached.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes if you take an idea out for a walk and it doesn't bear fruit or whatever, you're like, it's that moment of truth. You're like, this isn't working. And either you show someone if you want a little, you know, someone you trust and you know will be on the same page, or you just know. I mean, I got to a point where I just knew.
Even I feel like, especially, you know, if you're just doing board writing or whatever, like there's so many people above you that will be judging from, you know, from the executive producer to the network, and it's like sometimes you guys would turn stuff in that I would love, and then I'd get notes back and I'd be like, oh, can we please do it? And they'd be like, no, and then I'd be like, oh man. And then, you know, somebody, sometimes me, sometimes you, would have to go in and just do major reconstructive surgery. So you can't get too attached, or
you can't.
It's gonna hurt real bad.
I feel really lucky on many of the shows at Cartoon Network where that didn't happen very often. Like, I can't think of an episode that I did on Billy and Mandy where I had to revamp too much. Maybe the Christmas one. That one didn't go great for me. But Only Santa,
like,
maybe it was good with the vampire and all that.
It turned out great, but
yeah.
yeah.
Maybe I have a weird memory of it, but I think there were certain things that didn't gel. That I did a lot did gel, but I think it was a two-parter, right, with other people on it. So maybe that was part of it.
The only thing I remember actually doing as far as boarding goes is the Mandy dance. I actually think Sean Cashman did some of that too.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah.
At the end where she's singing Christmas carols to
that's right.
keep the vampires at bay.
I have not seen that one in a very long time. I've rewatched a bunch, but there's so many. Can you believe we got to do that show for 6 years?
7 years.
Yeah, you got to do that show. It's your show. But I told 7 years. Yeah, I guess I'm counting 6 because I wasn't. I left for a gym partner for that 7th year. But yeah, it's crazy because another thing about today's world, like I don't know, 7 years is it deserved 7 years and more if you ask me. But that's unusual, even for a really good show.
Even for that show, really the only reason we lasted 7 years was because they were so slow on the pickups. Like we got canceled 3 times essentially. So
that's right? Okay.
I would lose 6 to 9 months and most of the crew before they pick it up. So
amazing.
Really, it should have been like 5, but I'm not complaining.
Yeah, take it, right? Yeah, stretch it out, and we had so many good people on it, and you've interviewed a lot of them, so I'm glad to chat it up a little bit.
I guess before we finish, because it's come up so many times in the last few discussions I've had with people, is AI. Like, and I feel like we've almost touched on it like 14 times.
Yeah.
But I guess it's kind of here to stay now for animation. So
yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on it, or have you used it at all?
Well, since I haven't used it, Well, I used it once on a drawing I made on, I took a picture of a drawing and then I didn't know there was this filter on Instagram that you could press, I was telling you earlier. And it did a felt version, like a felt doll version, did a claymation version, and it looked really cool, I was like, okay, but why not just sculpt it myself? Like I could have, but of course I didn't. It was just a nice, quick little shortcut to say, this is what it would look like if, pretty well. I would say since it's unavoidable advent, super dangerous in a lot of ways because we all know it can replace artists. Executives want things done cheap and fast, and if they don't have to deal with artists, all the better. So that's the evils of this. Along with making more money for them because they don't have to pay artists or deal with their personalities or whatever. That's a big deal. But
yeah, you don't get smack talk from AI, I guess.
Yep, they'll just
maybe you do.
Yeah, you just have to reprompt them continually, and it'll take AI sometimes a lot of work to keep reprompting. But yeah, there's no politics there. It's just like, okay, nope, I don't want 12 fingers, I want 5 fingers, But if it's used well, I guess, in what capacity would it be used well? I've never used it. So, I once, I think I was telling you in the car earlier that, I wrote a story, my own personal idea for us, whatever, cartoon story or whether it be a book or whatever. And I put in the synopsis, like a paragraph, and it gave me feedback. And a lot of it was really thought-provoking and interesting. And of course, it's really supportive, which feels good. Like, oh, this is a really good idea.
Good job, Brett.
This is
you're amazing.
Yeah, you're amazing. Exactly. What an incredible imagination.
You never get that from me. So.
Yeah, exactly. From nobody in the world. No, exactly. And I have been fortunate in getting. The way of giving support is to be asked back to the show over and over again, which I've been in many circumstances. You don't always hear, great job, I did from you a lot, which I always appreciated. And this guy's great. He gave lots of, he gave lots of, he let you have that free reign, which is what a lot of creators won't do that.
I don't know. I love art in general, and I love, talking about the artistic process and it's just part of. It's also just like such a burden to get, all these episodes done that you have to trust other people. That's another sort of shame about AI, I guess, is like I feel like the people using it don't develop, those sort of basic artistic skills, but they're also not really getting feedback in the same way. It's just like, you press a button, it's done. I guess I kind of worry that it's going to end up like, so some executive or some billionaire is just going to sit down and be like, it reduces the I guess number of opinions and ideas that you're getting to just one person.
Yeah.
So it's like you guys came up with stuff I never would have thought of, and I was like, that's so fun, and it became part of the DNA of the show. But if you're just doing it all by yourself, it feels like that would get stagnant pretty quick.
Working in,
I guess we'll find out.
In like a bubble, and again, talking about the audience, you want to keep things interesting, and you want, so you get different voices to a degree, and I think there's certain shows that just feel, as creative as they are, if there were more by one person's like vision, like this is a Big Mac, and this is how we always make a Big Mac, after you eat a Big Mac every day, you start to say, well, what's something else tastes like, how about some Chinese food or, so I think that's really important. And with AI, you might get, like you're saying, a billionaire just pressing buttons and look what I did, everybody. I know a vampire stuck in the bathroom on Planet X, and that's what I prompted in, and this is what I did. And it's like, well, sure, we can do Mad Libs all day long and come up with random scenarios, but what is the point of view? What is your actual point of view? What is so what do you really hit on? So I'm sorry if I talk too much about it, but what you really hit on was the struggle, the process. If that's lost, then I think all is lost, because that's part of how we discover what it is that we want to say and to do in creative ways,
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of even to this day, sort of stumbling and failing and having to figure out how to fix things.
And for all the people out there who think that someone tries to sell you on, they just sit down and just make the greatest thing ever, and it's just like pours out of them like water. I mean, I can't think of anyone who's like that for, okay? That's what it is, basically. It's like, that is just a facade. People work really hard on this stuff, and it's sweat. And in fact, when I worked on Billy and Mandy, that's part of why I worked at home, because I could focus, and sometimes I wasn't sure what I was going to do, so I would do and redo, and I just wanted everyone to see it at the pitch fresh, without anybody. I didn't pitch out little ideas on the side or anything to anybody, because I wanted everyone to be surprised and everyone to be engaged, and that was the proof that it worked. Because at home, when you watch it, on TV, I'm not going to show you an idea. It's just like they're going to watch a cartoon fresh from beginning to end, and that was sort of my approach. So knowing that process, what we came up in AI, if AI is overused or used for that reason, people will see that as a crutch, a way to escape that honestly kind of painful process, because it's not particularly fun in spots, because you're like, oh my God, I've got to produce, in 6 weeks, I've got to make everybody laugh, and they're going to spend $1 million on this thing, and well, this isn't funny, and then you start getting, of course, the inner critic. You can get really hard on yourself. So I'd say sweating is not a bad thing. It's normal. So if there's struggle going on, keep pushing through and make yourself entertained or laughed. And that's the process that AI will probably want to do for us down the line. And I think people are going to bite that hook. They're going to bite it.
Oh, for sure.
Because they're like, who wants to struggle? Like before air conditioning, who wants to sit in a hot room sweating over, I think of Snow White, when they made Snow White in 1937 or whatever. They made those in over fans that blow air on you, old school electronics.
Right.
No air conditioning was available, and that was in Burbank. So they were sitting in 100-degree weather, sweating on their pages as they flipped them. They didn't know any different. And now, would we sit in a room like that?
Probably not.
I wouldn't. I'd be like, get me out of here, I can't work.
When I was on Bunnicula, the first couple weeks in the trailer were a little brutal.
I remember that trailer. I thought, wow, that was cool. Yeah, brutal, huh? Yeah.
Well, just the heat reminded me, because I had this fan that was just blowing on me and swing this way, and I'd be like,
It's an unusual thing at Warner Brothers, how they had those crazy trailers. They're gone now.
Yeah, that whole, that was the Warner Ranch. The whole thing's gone.
The whole thing's gone. But they're rebuilding it, right? It's not gone.
I think it's becoming corporate offices, I think.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a space for filming anymore, really.
That's too bad. That was a fun place to work. That was one of the best things about Animaniacs. And because working on that lot was super fun. Yeah. A lot of culture, a lot of time. A lot of old sitcoms were shot there, and Friends and all that. Yeah. They were filming Young Sheldon through my window, so I got to watch that.
Yeah, they kept building football fields for I can't remember the show. That football show.
Oh, yeah. I don't know that show. I'm not a sports guy, but was there even a football show?
Yeah, I am a little ashamed that I can't remember the name, but I do not remember the name.
Yeah. Well, maybe it wasn't worth
Friday Night
remembering.
Lights?
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
Yeah. No idea. Yeah. Was this in the late 2015s or something?
Yeah. Down there.
Yeah. But they filmed Three Stooges on that lot.
I know, they filmed so many things.
So many cool things.
They had the Walton House.
Yep.
You could go look through the window where the guy mistook his kid for giving Kevin Spacey a blowjob in American Beauty.
Oh, damn! I didn't know that, actually.
I think
that's great.
The Christmas Vacation house was there.
Yes, that I knew. Isn't that the Lethal Weapon house?
The I Dream of Jeannie house was there.
The I Dream of Jeannie house was there. Bewitched was there.
Bewitched.
Wasn't Lethal Weapon the same house as the Christmas Vacation house, or no?
I think it might have been. Actually.
Yeah, I'm not sure actually, but I know that Lethal Weapon was filmed there a couple times, right? And anyway, lots of fun stuff. And now it's gone, but that's, things always
That's
change.
the nature of Hollywood.
Nothing stays the same. So appreciate what you have when you have
Exactly.
it. And things keep moving. But yeah, I would say since we have no escape from AI, we need to have regulations around it.
I mean, that would be wonderful. Sure.
Yeah. But, what kind of world are we living in right now?
Not that one.
Yeah, not that one at the moment. So it's we'll see what happens. But I'm staying on paper. I still draw on paper, pen and ink and color. I may work on the computer with work, of course, but my personal work, I would highly recommend if people like board writing, they should do it on paper, at least initially. Thumbnails.
Yeah. There's
Did you ever have that
about
experience?
the tactile experience where
It's almost like seeing the big picture. Like when I was on Uncle Grandpa, I tried to write my boards in the computer, and I've talked about this with other board writers. They're like, "Oh, that was the mistake for them too."
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I mean, I do end up doing a lot of board writing in Storyboard Pro, but yeah, just sometimes it's very basic. But I do thumbnails on paper first, just the broad strokes, and yeah, there's something about that.
I don't know it's how disposable it is, I think. Because when I work on Toon Boom, even if I'm drawing fast and loose, you think, oh, well, I'll just duplicate the panel and add his arm going up, and then an eye dart. And then, I can just copy and paste this background. Before you know it, you're doing all the technical things that take to make a nice looking storyboard. Whereas when you work on paper, it should be loose poses that tell a story.
It's just the pure ideas. It's
pure ideas. Yeah, that is what's the essence of it. Storyboarding. Yeah, because if you're doing clean, beautiful drawings and whatnot, you're doing something else. You should be maybe on the other end, which is good. Character design or background design or props or whatever. So
layouts, development art kind of stuff.
Development art. Yep.
Well, this went on longer than I thought, which I'm not mad about.
So you have a lot to pick from, right?
Yeah. But is there anything you're working on now that you want people to know about? Anything you want to plug?
You mean? Well, I'm working on the Patrick Show, and then my personal work is on my Instagram page. If you guys want to see if anyone out there wants to see my personal work, I still write and do my own comics. I have a new age sensitive boy who's been a character of mine since I was kind of not a kid, but in my 20s. I think he's a funny little guy, and I do a lot of him lately to kind of see what he's about and just explore. So he's kind of all over the map, but that's the process. And Peace Pig is another character I do. He's peace loving pig, and anyway, lots of other weirdo comics that.
Well, what's your name on Instagram?
There's Brett Varon Comics, and then I think Brett Varon Sketchbooks. So it's my name.
Okay.
So if you look up Brett Varon, it'll come up.
You'll find you.
You'll find me, and I have a blog too that I posted that Hog Wild episode on. Because actually, someone reached out to me, and I'm not used to getting reached out to, so I don't want to sound that way, but occasionally that'll happen, and someone said, "Would you please post Hog Wild storyboards?" And I was like, "No, I'm cringing because that's one of my looser ones." But I'm like, well, I like that episode, so that's it. Yeah, but that's all I would plug for myself, I guess. If anyone wants to check out anything, I love what I do, and I'll do more. So I'll do more, whether you like it or not. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Brett.
Yeah. Right on. This was fun. Yeah, it's always good to talk. And we do this all the time anyway, so this time it's recorded. So.
Very cool. That's it.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Yeah. I also remembered you were the one that knocked out Paris's teeth.
This is the end. Smash your television.